Oh, thanks everybody for being here, and especially Wyatt and Barbara for their wonderful hospitality, and my wonderful fellow faculty, and all you fabulous people, and the staff, Adam, Megan. I'm so happy to be here. I thought I'd start out with a poem that I'm going to read for Wyatt, because in response to his wonderful Bad Dog poem, which my dog Gracie, who was a Dalmatian, had a poem published in an anthology. It was called Unleashed, Poems by Writers' Dogs. And my dog Gracie, she loved to run. And she had her best friend was named Plutarch, and he was a hound. He was a beautiful, tan and white hound, and they would race around and just have the best time. So Gracie wrote a sonnet. It rhymes. It's not. It doesn't have 5 feet, because dogs have sort of a shorter attention span than we do, and it's written in anapestic meter, because this is a loping. It suits her. So, dog sonnet. I know where I'm going, Plutarch's coming with, off to goof drabble sproing, snoop a rich double whiff, fish kill at the sinkhole, oh magnificent luck, grabble puke marley roll in the terrible druck. Hey a mole, holy rapture, dig it forepaw full blown, wait a minute, got fleas, got to stickle the flap of this ear, here's a bone prone to me, sneeze. Okay, I'll follow that up with a little more silliness. There's this, I love playing with form, and there's this lovely form called a beau présent. Does anybody know what this is? I think it comes from France, obviously. It means beautiful gift, I think. And it's a poem written for or about somebody, using only the letters in their full name. And so I started experimenting with this on myself. So here's a poem called Sidney Wade, which is my name. Oh, by the way, how many of you ever saw the old movie, The American President? Do you remember who Annette Bening played? She played a character named Sidney Wade. So oh, thank you, Wyatt. Sidney Wade. Eyes wide, Sidney dallies in news. These are the headlines. 9 lewd laddies landed, dandies all. Silly, weensy lines. Ladies dandle senile aliens. Landslide delayed. Deans swindle. Sidney wines and dines well in a new deli. Walleye and eels. Swell. Linden sway and annelids wail. Weasels wade in saline eddies. Weedy alleys widen. Sidney wisely yields as eyelids leaden. All ends in sin. Yawn. This is really fun. I mean, if you like playing with anagrams. The second one I wrote is, only 2 exist, for my daughter, Amanda Dahl Powell. When she was young, her friends used to call her Panda. So, Amanda Dahl Powell. Amanda peed. Amanda plowed ahead. Amanda demanded a headlamp. Amanda led a poodle and waddled. Amanda ladled pomade and muled. Amanda ate a whole paella. Amanda plowed a lowland dell and dawdled. Panda napalmed a lawman and walloped a headman. Damn! So I encourage you to try this. This is fun. The next one I'm going to try after I do my second daughter, Elena Palmer Powell. I'm going to try Buzz Steinknecht, which is he's got great letters in his name. So, okay. Form. I wrote for a while some very tiny little poems. I call them monosonnets. They are 14-line poems with 1 word on each line. So they're very skinny. This first one is called Well, the occasion for this one is when my daughter, who was in in elementary school, had to bake an orange cake as a project for school. So we baked the cake, and the recipe called for the zest of an orange. And you all know what this is. You take the orange part off, you scrape it off. And so I left the rest of the orange on the counter for breakfast the next morning. I went to bed, came back downstairs, and saw this naked thing on the counter, and I felt profoundly sorry for it. So the poem is called Pity the Poor Orange. Bald white orb on the table rests, its veined membrane exposed, flayed for zest. After the Flood Frogs is the name of this poem, another monosonnet. After the flood frogs assemble, whorp, and fart, dissemble, delve, and throng, prolonging the agglutinant song of themselves. The spontaneous combustion of a shopkeeper from alcohol. He must have ignited red and fast, the crusty knave light-spirited at last. Those are from this book that I published several years ago. A lot of the poems in this book were written in a state of horrendous indignation, an absolute outrage. This is after Bush was not elected twice. So I was in a mood writing these poems. The Body Politic. It has, wait a minute, no, I want to do this other one first. An organized crime spree of the highest order. This just in. Our apocalyptic nerve gas news analysis team reports the final dissolution of the squeamish party. The mercantile essence has reinvigorated the auction block and ratcheted up a free-for-all in our deeply pocketed hemi-demi heaven. Beyond the ever-efflorescent brass, an occasional lance gleams in the camps of the foolhardy who suspect necrosis in the ballot box is advanced. Yet the ship of state barges on in brilliant rays of tin largesse as we mine the metaphysics of the mall. The mall. Not the mall. The Body Politic. Evil thrives in a variety of plumages, in protuberant behavior, in brief deceits. We wander its corridors on the cusp of business, a mighty fabric over the eyes. Our private darknesses illumined by paraphernalia and its non-combustible flame, while the lesser profondeurs blandish and surl in a controlled burn. It's all map and no shingle. It's wickedness on fire with bodily intent. Grotesqueries with a huge probability of failure. An adroit robbing style with a beau regard. Rotundity and crenellation. So their trembling emissary is in a royal jam, says, "Get out the way and listen. An apparition at the gate will very soon cast a glance over your sodden company. Under that cool cloud over there is a fuming trope, but it's for the brethren only, and the deputy steppers. What we are left with is the quantity racket, muffled illusions, and a very great sadness. We are dazed and in the open on our way to the foreghastly conclusion." Continuing on the theme, but a little less obviously political, is a poem called Grand Disastery. Moored by fine tethers to certain death, a hornet fizzes on the windowsill. A spider flies to its side to securely bind this abundant harvest. The hornet, in shrill thrall to agony, drills a hole in God's provident breast pocket. In the sublime cold light of this tiny constellation, the bald pulp of the hornet's diminishing hum feeds growing eyes and hungry sockets. The figure is clean, a small black aster hung among the stars. Um, I'm going to read this poem simply because it has the word mumbledy-peg in it, and I was reminded of it last night. Approaching 50. I've graduated from behavioral college. I've met my share of cataclysmic goofballs. I've been wheeled into the emergency era and introduced to the triumph report. Insurance enablers line the highway to disaster, where I'm leaning now on a motionless stick. I'm looking for the great high words, but what comes are mumbledy-peg and washing machine. I smell a crude, ruined smell. It's a slice of wince pie. I am handed some academic pliers by a man with a too proud expression on his face. It's a kind of lesion. He asked me to manufacture out of all of this an argument for stellar equality. Okay, give me the materials and don't make me pant. It isn't so simple. It's an amazement. And one more poem from this book. It's called Chimera. You remember the chimera from Greek mythology, the head of a lion, body of a something, or a horse, and the tail of a serpent. This creature actually exists in the way that the leprechauns exist. I have faced it personally. There's a place on the southern coast of Turkey where you can go to. It's called Yanartaş. It means burning stone, or Mount Olympus. You go down. It's on the southern coast of the Mediterranean. You arrive there and start climbing the mountain at dusk. By the time you get to the spot, it's dark, and there are little fires burning out of the ground, and they have been burning for centuries. It's methane. It's just a constant supply of methane. The fire, they're 6 inches to, a foot and a half, 2 feet tall, these little fires, just all over the place. And they've been burning for centuries. You know that sailors sailing by this spot in the dark saw this fire-breathing something or other up there. So it's absolutely real. Chimera. The beastly hot flesh of the beach's nude white sand sears the feet even in the dark. The waves a quiet lace ornament on hissing water. From here, we climb up the mountain's flank. It's hairless and strange and arid. Pebbles chuckle down. The trail is thin. My flashlight flashes and ranges like a wild white eidolon. No moon, hot darkness radiating down. Aqueous lightnings prick at the backs of the eyes. Here is the odor of seeping gases. Here is the face of the beast. Small fires in the ground. Little blue tongues, cold to the eye, lap formally at the night's profile. I've stalked my way here to this mythical minute on the creature's lip, down a metaphorical path whose wobbly complex of wrong, destructive pieces and powerful beauties resembles this old monster grappled up by sailors heaving on the ragged, growling breast of an ancient sea. And now here I am, scrambling over the stone face, peering down into the hot compound eyes, and wondering from the outskirts of the fractured ground if a tangle with the handsome Bellerophon on his magical steed with the great and poetic wings isn't just what I really need. I forgot to mention, in case you didn't remember, Bellerophon is the one who finally conquered the chimera. Such luck. In the larger darknesses of the ground west of sight, I'm shouting at the mountain of silence and depth when an eye opens, and I open my mouth to devour the sound of night, which in time will filter through all that swings or hums. My fist is full of letters, my wrist aches like a drum. Such luck to hold a compendium of resonant voices in the sanatorium of my head, whose guest book is crowded with the highbrow and the lowbrow, and whose overseer in the background prays every day for my bright daughters and the black-blue waters they're swimming through and all the possibilities they might swallow. And I know my strength and sphere may be slight, but look at this handful of light I found in a crack in the ground. Here, it's for you. In the mood for love. I refer in this poem to, do you remember there, many years ago, there was a traveling exhibit, or maybe several. The one I saw was just called Bodies, and it was, human organs and figures and systems that were, it was an extraordinary exhibit. In the mood for love. Evening spills gold onto the shoulders of the trees across the lake. The quiet air wants me out in it, but I remain inside, watching a Chinese movie, in the mood for love. And now my lover calls from the city, and we re-immerse in the slow, dark warmth of our recent meeting. And now the lake, too, is calling to me. I want intensely to soak in that light right now, and it occurs to me a finite amount of golden light remains to my life as the red squirrels quarrel on the porch. And I return to the Chinese movie, which concerns adulterous lovers, and naturally I think of my own adulterous lover, and see again the fireflies that lazily surprised us in the dusk of the park, and the haze of our bodies, and their accustomed but ever more profound pleasures, or should I say understandings. And now some children kayak by in their red and yellow boats, and their calls and laughter return me to an evening long ago on this same lake. I'm rowing with a handsome young philosopher. We're one of a phalanx of boats heading to the western edge of the lake in search of a diabetic boy lost in the darkening marsh. And the philosopher and I are ferrying the game warden, whose body odor, powerful as a corpse in heat, wafts back and chokes us, sniggling at the oars. But he was the one who found the boy in the impossibly mosquitoed northern swamp and brought him back. And now I'm back to the movie, where a very long moment is devoted to the smoke that sensually envelops the handsome lead. And I remember the bodies exhibit we saw in Tampa, the flayed and disemboweled corpses of many Chinese dead, mounted and posed to instruct our healthy Western children on the intricate beauty of the inner self. And we all clearly saw how most of these exposed lungs were charcoal black. And now night has truly fallen, the wind has dropped, and the life-jacketed children call to their life-jacketed parents and paddle on home. And in the Chinese movie, it sounds like Nat King Cole is crooning in awkward, unaccustomed Spanish to us all, as the sexy smoke swirls around the head of the sexy married man, and so much is lost in translation. Oh, I'm not through with that. Form. Oh, half of my poems in this book are written in Maine, and the other half are written in Florida. So this is another Maine, but that one was a Maine poem. This is another one. Form. And now the lake's slate gray, the trees green fringed, and deeper in the distance, the mountain hulks and presses its blue form, insistent on the eye, absolutely everything at stake at every moment. One of the things I do when I'm in Maine, instead of what I should be doing, like writing poems, I have all the time in the world. Instead, I often go swimming. I have the little lake is only a half-mile wide, and so I can swim to the other side and come back. It's a good workout. But I grew up swimming in salt water. And it all depends on what you grow up with, what you prefer. So I prefer salt water. The lake, to me, although the water is delicious, it always gives me the creeps. I'm not comfortable in it, but so this is called The Creeps. Today is just like yesterday, except for a swim across the lake, whose water creeps me out, most always has, since long ago, when I first discerned those rusty devil's claws in the shallows under my canoe that seemed to strain to leap from the lake bed up to drag me and my tipsy craft down in their jagged clutch. Nevertheless, I jump into the cold black water and tie the swim ring to my ankle in case of cramp or worse. What could be worse? I'll tell you. It's when you reach the deep interior, a quarter mile from either solid shore, and that dark beast, who's kept to those silent depths forever, will look up and notice above him in the blue a feast, two naked legs winking whitely in the high firmament of his world, and who will surely rise to investigate what might be for him a revelation of flavor and swirl akin to that of an oyster or maybe a pearl on toast. How many of you have heard of a geep? A geep is a scientific invention. It is actually a cross breeding between a goat and a sheep. This was brought to my attention by my Michael Hoffman, who at that time was my office mate. Geep. The music of the sleepy day was ravagingly dull until Michael reeled up a geep from the depths of his considerable intelligence. A geep, a wonky blend of goat and sheep, a medical medley, genetic fugue they call chimera, another wholly enthralling sound we found when Googling geep, whose enharmonic bleating in the end rings oh so sad. The photo on the screen reveals a downcast baby creature, neither here nor there, two bold and mordant sets of chromosomes whistling fortissimo through its patchwork hide, a botched-up map of silken hair and woolly yellow fur, its forlorn droopy ears a study in radical embarrassment. I feel profoundly sorry for this little border folly, this lonely little instrument of the ever-expanding notion of what's possible, but then I see we're kin, the little geep and me. We're marginal ephemera intoning low, invisible messages at the edges of the known to who knows whom, the difference between us a matter of degree. The poet, of course, a hybrid creature of transport and remorse, an overreacher in semaphore who knows that sound's the gold in the ore, whose pleasure ground is a linguistic welter that rides like ice on its own melting to paradise or to a stranger land we don't yet understand. Those of you who know Frost's essay, The Figure a Poem Makes, will recognize the wholesale theft in that poem. Two more. Stuck. Here's a poem from the prairie of Gainesville. The Paynes Prairie is this beautiful, natural, it's a state park, and I walk out 2-3 times a week. It's a beautiful, beautiful trail with lots of creatures on it. Stuck. The great blue heron balances on water weeds and pulls at a long dead stick. I've seen him fly these bones into the high dead tree to build his rigid nest, but this one is truly stuck. No, he's pulling at the body of a corn snake whose tail is knotted firmly around the stick, and his head and half his body already far down the gullet. The heron can't unknot the tail, so he regurgitates the top half to work a better angle, and now the snake dangles limply as the great bird gnaws the gold-red knot with his hard yellow beak and swallows again. An hour passes, the bird works, the corn snake clings, the sun shines, the wind blows, kites and egrets, hawks and swallows soar in the brilliant light of this design in which every bird and every beast is obliged to feast on the living to live. One of the birds we fairly regularly get to see on the prairie are whooping cranes. Not many. We once had a family of 3, but pretty regularly one shows up every year, and it's amazing. There are only 400 of these birds left in the whole world, and we get to see one in our backyard. Amazed. Today on the windy prairie, black clouds sheet down in the east. I'm going to get wet. The blue-eyed grass clumps in tuffets beside the path. They startle the corner of the eye like the swish of an unseen snake through dry weeds quick turns the head. A large turtle naps on the mud bank in the placid shadow of a torpid alligator. It rains a little, and I get a little wet with the black-necked stilts who yap like dogs in swift flight over this wet, bright landscape, where a single whooping crane slogs in the shallow marsh, hunting for brunch, and thrusts its fine, red-knotted head into the muck, and emerges in blackface and blinks, and we are all amazed. I turned into a birder 4 years ago, and so for the past few years, all of the poems I've written are about birds. So here come some. Gird your loins. When we went out on the bird walk with Jim and with David, a lot of people here got to see the indigo bunting, which is just this striking blue bird. It's just outlandish. It's so lovely. I wrote a poem about it. The only thing you might not understand here is I refer to Emil Nolde. Do you know his watercolors? He's the most intense watercolorist I've ever seen. Just brilliant, brilliant blue and other colors. Indigo bunting. Blue as paint, blue as flame, blue as blue dawn, blue as the burn after lightning, blue on fire, blue and a black beak, blue on electric wire, blue as the sky just after dark, blue on the back of the eye, blue as sleep, blue as a sky blue dancer, no bluer, blue as a sunning shark, blue as Nolde's watercolor, blue shot, blue bead, bluer than the deep indigo sea, blue as speed, blue fizz, blue, black, blue, dart and sizzle. This poem, how many of you remember what the dial-up modem sounds like, or sounded like? Okay, this poem is quickly going to go out of fashion, or nobody's going to understand it in about 20 years, but because it relies on that. I'm going to read this one for Christian, my new croquet buddy. Okay, red-winged blackbirds in the rain. Glossy black males unpack red epaulettes and sway atop wet cattail stems. They sing conqueree with a tinny buzz, just as a dial-up modem does. Burrowing owl. Very odd, this little cloud in trousers, in the sandy fortress favored by prairie dog and gopher tortoise. On the mound at the mouth hole, he scouts around with sibylline yellow eyes, and then owl-wise decides to clean house. He dives down, and soon great clouds of smudge come flying out, his home now clean as a bone. A diurnal owl, he's upside down and inside out, at ease not in trees but underground, where his mate broods on her 8 fragile moons in an immaculate burrow whose contours are lined with cow manure. Turkey vultures. I love turkey vultures. I think I say something in here that's untrue, so don't tell anyone, David. Turkey vultures lack a syrinx, so cannot sing. They do not stink. Their red heads are featherless for cleanliness. They have 3 sets of eyelashes. They wash their pinkish legs in rivulets of urine, which stain them white and cool them down. They rule many skies. Generic name, Cathartes, purifier. When they fly, they soar for hours, riding high thermals, gliding on bountiful rivers of air. Tippy in flight, they balance and right, hover and crown. Pacific creatures, Catholic in their taste for carrion, they do not fight or kill their prey. Their feet are clawed, but weak as are their beaks. They are benign and much maligned. Bird words. There's so many wonderful names for birds. I'm just going to throw a whole bunch at you. Bird words. Tanager, gnatcatcher, Caspian tern, goatsucker, chimney swift, canvasback, ern, bristle-thighed curlew and mandarin duck fly like the heartstrings, the stricken and plucked. Bunting and oriole, veery and lark sing for the deepest down gold in the dark. Godwit and goldfinch and stilt on the fly give me a gannet to gladden the eye. Sora and phalarope, phoebe and kite, dickcissel, sapsucker, flicking the night, magnificent frigate bird, pinions unfurled, the light and the feathered heart verbs of the world. Birding at the Dairy. I think this is a sister poem to Claudia's wonderful poem about the murmuration of birds, so I'm reading this for Claudia and Kent. Birding at the Dairy. We're searching for the single yellow-headed blackbird we've heard commingles with thousands of starlings and brown-headed cowbirds, when the many-headed body arises and undulates, a sudden congress of wings in a maneuvering wave that veers and wheels, a fleet and schooling swarm in synchronous alarm, a bloom radiating in ribbons, in sheets, in waterfall, a murmuration of birds that turns liquid in air, that whooshes like waves on the shore, or the breath of a great seething prayer. 30 white pelicans kettle up in the sky, lazing in helical praise of high thermals which hold them circling, pinned to the pellicle of blue film between skin and all things angelical. The Chickasaw Trees. I'm reading this for Mary Flynn, who was kind enough to publish it in Blackbird, and it's included in this year's Best American Poetry Anthology. So yeah, the Chickasaw trees are full of bees. The pretty white panicles everywhere turn them frantic as they haul their pollen baskets from star to fragrant star. This industry thrumming in the hearts of flatland plums hums in the lucky air far from where war goes on, and here on the sunlit prairie light winds shift and dusky nouns are sung from the trees, where an owl frowns in sleep and later comes in the guise of ghost to say he knows that all the people in a world without bees are lost. I just have two more poems. They're the newest ones. I'm changing. No, I'll read three. I'll read three more. I'm through with. I've written, for so long this long, skinny line, and I love it because it forces you to pay attention to the sounds. And but I think I need to do something different now. I'm not quite sure what it is, so these are tentative steps in a different direction. At the ophthalmologist's office. We are here to shed light on our condition. My pupils dilate. We are here to brighten the interior of the eye, to map the macula. We are here to enlighten dark spots in the tissue, dimples in the web. We are here to measure the growing cataract, to assess approaching disaster. More light, more light. We are here to arrive at clarity, to inspect interstitial ashes. Year by year, our charts thicken. The heavy man beside me wheezes, his bulk straining the wicker of his chair. We are here to probe the shadows as we observe flashes of light on the fringes of vision. Here my chin rests in the frame of the cutting-edge instrument, whose small breeze is a spider kissing my wide-open eye. Ever after. We lie together with our books and watch the oriole who sneaks an occasional peanut from the feeder just above the window. We're sick. We've hacked and coughed for weeks. You, my love, are older than my mother when she died at 72. I recall when I was sick with flu, ill and alone for days. I grasped aslant the way so many people died as I listened to the birds outside that other house's window repeat the many words for sustenance their languages allow. It was shiny, that flu, and hot. orange and black. You, my wandering love, will leave soon for the Everglades. My mother died, of course, too young. That flu was a hot shattering. It brought damp earth smell and broken shade, insects that flew with jeweled wings into my bed and my sleep, where they stung. When these flesh grenades, our hearts, go off, I hope we pass into the groundswell of the million accuracies we've seen and loved in each other and this sumptuous earth, into lightnings humming with bees. And I'll just finish with, this is a very different poem written some time ago. It's an occasional poem. I was asked to write it for the Conservation Stewards dinner of the Alachua Conservation Trust. And they read this every year. They really like this poem. And somebody just wrote to me today to say, could they have it? It's not been published in a book, but she wanted to frame it and put it on her wall. And so I thought, well, maybe that's a sign I should read it. It's called The Hard Saving, and the phrase comes from a book written by Archie Carr, who was a great naturalist who lived in Florida for many years. I think that's all. The sun hums low on a steaming river. A late light whispers through littering oaks. The long hours speak in the tongues of birds, in the slip of leaves to the listening ground. This earth-sprung language, bright and resonant, rattles from the throats of the leaving cranes. It springs from abundant shining waters as they lunge for distant mangrove shores. It pours in the dialect of thundering rain, which adds to the fund of the mother tongue, the source that lies low, transparent and full, the life stream, the fundament, the great clear heart. In full fine words, the earth is speaking to those who listen and care to respond. But the subtle words are harder to hear and harder to find and smaller. It's late. Those who listen hear time stutter short, hear squeals of profit shatter the peace. The living words say, it's time, put by the fragile growing treasure. This saving is hard. There's hard labor in thrift. But those who listen have been resourceful. Some savings have accumulated, and we are richer for tenacious accounting of the living green. We still have incomparable deep-voiced springs, big river-making and brilliant sources. Tall grasses still whisper their shining songs. Dark nights are still lit by singing creatures. Yet we must save more of our oldest reserve. We must learn to balance trust and power. We must sing the economy of saving grace. We must continue that song and not stop saving. Thank you very much.